Good morning, citizens of the interwebs. My name is Jared, and this is the Mazda B3K channel. Today, we're going to take care of a transmission drain and fill on my wife's 2016 Ford Transit Connect as pictured here. So you guys have seen this vehicle before, and it's time to do the second drain and fill on it. I've already done one, need to do one more to kind of get it back into compliance. The 6F35 transmission in it, it gets quite unhappy if you don't flush the fluid every 30,000 miles. So that's what we're going to work on today. Without further ado, let's get started. Those who don't know, in order to pop the hood on this guy, you have to open the door. You cannot pop it with the door closed. It says no thank you, there's a door in the way. And there is a little yellow switch. You throw that over and you lift. Oh, success. You have a prop rod, get that in position. Okay, here we go. First things first, I've said this in other videos and it bears repeating. Before you go to drain something, make sure you can fill it. So we need to find the fill. Now, I know where it is, and it is buried. I actually may need to get a little bit of light so I can show you guys. Let's see, it should be buried down in there. Let me go get a light so I can show you. Be right back. Alright, with the power of a flashlight, if you look below the coolant hose that's right there, alright, see the black cap right there below the coolant hose? I will put my hands on it here. See if I can get my hands down there. Alright. Okay, I've got my finger on top of it right now. Again, apologies, it's hard to see. It's directly under this coolant hose, and it is just a push-on cap. It's not threaded or anything like that, so you can wiggle it right off if you can actually get your hands in there to wiggle. And that is our fill cap. So we got that. The next step is we need to find our drain. So let's go take a look at that. Okay, see if we can zoom in. There we go. The bolt you see sticking out right there next to the QR code in the label, that is our drain. Not very big. That's what we got. It's a little tricky to show everything right now because I'm keeping the vehicle level for the drain, so I don't have it up on ramps. That's another thing. When you're doing a transmission drain and fill, the level is really important, or the levelness of the vehicle, because you don't have a dipstick on this transmission to check. It's a little bit of guesswork, and when you do this, make sure that you've got your vehicle as level as possible so you have as accurate drain and fill as you can. So today's transmission flavor is going to be Ford Mercon LV. This is the only fluid that you should be using for a 6F35 transmission. Now, Ford put this transmission in a ton of vehicles. Ford Fusion, the Escape, this van, Transit Connect. I think they put it in the, what is it called? EcoSport. Whole bunch of vehicles have this particular transmission, and the only thing you should use is Mercon LV. That's it. Full stop. Otherwise, you're going to tear it up. Just end of discussion. Alright, so this is a 5-quart bottle, and when you're doing a drain and fill, you should expect to get 4.5, 5 quarts out. So, correspondingly, when we go to fill, we're going to put 4.5 to 5 quarts in. If we overfill a little bit, that's okay, because we're going to level out the fluid after we get it warmed up. But we definitely don't want to go under. Under is bad. Under makes things break. No bueno. So, our next step is going to be that we need to loosen up the drain plug I showed you earlier. And to do that, you're going to need, I'm using a deep well, but you're going to need an 11 millimeter or its SAE equivalent. And I'm using a 1/4 inch ratchet so I don't get a little bit too frisky when I go to put this thing back on, so I don't strip out threads or anything. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to loosen up this drain plug, which again is right there. I'm going to loosen it up before I slide the pan in, so that way I can just finger wiggle it out and not worry about the pan getting in the way. Now this is my oil pan. There are many like it, as it's basically sold at all auto parts stores, Walmart, things like that. Very briefly, if you've never used one of these, you have a main drain. Gotta uncork that. You have a place to put the cap so you don't lose it. You have a breather. You need to pop that open so that it can keep up with the flow rate as oil is draining and it doesn't overflow the pan. It may be hard to tell. There's a slight incline that tries to send all the fluid into your main drain. This will hold 16 quarts. That's 4 gallons. Pretty handy. Make sure that's closed before you start. That's so that you can pour this out at any place that recycles oil, which is most of your parts stores. In my area, the Take 5s are like the designated reclaim centers for coolant and oil. So hey, if you live in Florida, you can take it to your local Take 5, and it doesn't matter if you've got gas in the oil or you had a milkshake problem where you got coolant getting in oil, they'll take it. They have to. So, auto parts store, they want clean oil. If you don't have clean oil, if they smell gas in it or something like that, they'll say nope. But Take 5, they'll take it all. Cool. So make sure that's capped. That's how you drain it out. We're going to go ahead. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. We're going to get this pan in position. And as you can see, we don't have a lot of real estate because I'm keeping this flat. So I've got it roughly in position. I'm going to go ahead. I've got the drain bolt. It's finger tight. I already loosened it up a bit. Drain bolt, a little hard to see now, but there it is. I'm going to go ahead, loosen that out, and we're going to start letting things drain. There we have it. Now, a little hard to tell the color because of it's morning and there's not a lot of light over here. It's dark. With Murcon LV, that doesn't necessarily mean a lot. Murcon LV darkens quickly. This fluid has, or the fluid I put in has about 1,000 miles on it. Plus whatever fluid I didn't get out last time, that fluid's going to have 100,000 miles on it. So hopefully it all mixed up. It's coming out. We're going to let this drain for a while. And once we are done draining, we'll cap it. I will show you what you can do. Cap it, make sure you don't have too much leaking going on. And then we'll go top side. We will go ahead and start our fill. Here's our drain plug. I've cleaned it up. Naughty drain plug, focus. There you go. Always check your threads, make sure those look good. As you can see, these threads look pretty pristine. So we're good there. What we're going to do is we're going to take some plumber's pipe dope. And I'm going to put pipe dope on the threads to ensure that we've got a good seal. If you don't have pipe dope, you can use Teflon tape, often called plumber's tape. That works as well. You might even be able to use some anti-seize, but I would go with the plumber's dope or the plumber's tape. So let me go get that so you can see what that's going to look like. We have pipe dope. It is basically a white goo, and you blob it over any connections that you're making when you do plumbing. But you can use it for other things like drain plugs. So all we're going to do here, see if I can make this work. Put the kickstand down. Alright, get the extra pipe dope off. Here we go. So all we're going to do is get a little bit of pipe dope, or a lot of it. Pipe dope tends to kind of go everywhere. It's not really going to hurt anything. But cover it in dope, like so. And it'll get between the threads, help make a better seal whenever you screw things back in. Alright, let's zoom in. Alright, so that's not all the way in. I just put it in enough to stop the drips. We were down to drips, so I wiped things up. Put the drain plug back in. And then I'll go ahead and tighten it up. And when you tighten this up, guys, it's a drain plug. So you don't need to go Hulk on it. Just make it firm so transmission fluid will not drip out. That's all you need to do. We are done here. I have one more vehicle to work on today, so I'm not going to clean that little bit of transmission fluid up. I'll just go ahead and put my main cap in, plug that up, slide it out of the way for now. So next topic is we need to get that that fill cap that is buried down there. Got to get that off, and it's a bit of a pain. Oh, okay, I got it. And what I did is I just pulled straight up, and the good news is I got it out, but the bad news is it rolled somewhere, and I gotta locate that before I continue. But what we'll do next after I locate that cap is I have this nice long funnel here that I can kind of wiggle in there, and then we'll go ahead and we'll start putting in fluid. Essentially, we're going to use the whole bottle. This is a 5-quart bottle. We need to put in like 4.5, 5 quarts. Something like that. So, be back. Alright, this is what it actually looks like. So, it tells you on the lid, hey, you know, use Mercon LV. If you can do it, you're supposed to change this hot. I'm changing it cold because it's just a little bit easier to do. However, when you do your final fluid checks, it does need to be hot. As you can see, this is not threaded at all. It is just a push-on, pull-off cap. All right, behave. There we go. It's a push-on, pull-off cap. So there's not much holding on there. You just pull it up. Just be really mindful as you pull it out that you lose this cap, you're kind of stuck until you can go find another one, because it's kind of unique. It doesn't have threads on it or anything. So now that we have that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our filter in. Let me see if I can get some light on here. Our funnel, excuse me. Alright, so you can, let's see. You can see the edge of it right there. And I need to see what I can do here. Alright. It's not going to work. That doesn't feel right. Because I don't want to pop this coolant hose. That introduces a whole host of problems. So if I can just kind of wiggle it out of the way and get this funnel in, that'll be perfect. Let me work on that, bring you back. Before I started the pour, I wanted to point out that most big jugs like this, they lay out the quarts in liters. So if you look at the bottom here, the liter marks are on the left, the quart marks are on the right. So that's the ones we will pay attention to. We're looking for putting in up to about 4.5, which means we'll go down to just probably the end of the marker line, or pretty close to it, and that's going to be about 4.5. That's what we'll put in, and then we're going to cap it up, and we'll let the transmission warm up and run it through the gears. Make sure we don't hear any crunchy oh no noises. So let's go ahead and get the pour going. You can see, it might be a little tricky because of the light. Let me slide over to the shadow real quick. There we go, better. As you can see, we've got about 1/2 quart left in here, and as this is a 5-quart jug, That means we're at about 4.5 quarts, which is what we wanted to do. I'm going to go ahead and take my funnel out. We're going to massage the cap back in. All right, so before we finish buttoning everything up or close the hood and move on to firing things, we need to check and make sure all of our stuff's where it should be. So again, very difficult to see. Had to argue with it for about 20 minutes to actually get the cap back on, but the cap is back in. You can just barely see it under this coolant hose. You definitely are going to mash your hands working on that, so I apologize in advance. Ford has a poopy design there. Cap's in, and you can see from the plywood there, it's not leaking, so we're good there. Cleaned up our work area. There's no tools or trash or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up and we'll crank. Alright, so we cranked, no issue, no warning lights, no check engine codes or anything. Helpful start while this is warming up before we start cycling through the gears, because what we need to do, this is an automatic transmission, and as we move through the gears, what that's going to do is force fluid around in the transmission. It'll mix new and old, and it'll also make sure that our fluid level is high enough that we can actually move through the gears so we can do our test drive. So while this is sitting and warming, I'll go ahead and take a peek under the vehicle. And you can see we're nice and dry, no drips. So I'm gonna let this sit a few more minutes, then we'll do the gear run through, and then I'll do the test drive. All right, I've let it sit for a bit. Let's go ahead, zoom in on the shift selector. Hey guys, here's what's up. Let's run through the gears, see what we get. To the right, okay, that sounded good. Of the CV axle boot there, where you see some fluids dribbled out. Good. This is the check port. All right, so we'll do this a couple of times on this transmission for Transit Connect. It's a little bit different than other flavors of the 6F35, but that's it. I popped it open real quick to kind of see one more time if it would dribble transmission fluid, and the answer is yes, it does. So now that we got that figured out, and the reason for the delay is you're wanting to get the transmission fluid up to operating temperature, or at least a bit warmer. Operating temp would probably be another 5 or 10 minute wait, and we're low on gas, so do the test drive and I'll report back my results. Back from the test drive, and I'm happy to report that transmission shifting great. So the last thing we need to do is make sure we're not over full. To do that, so to do this correctly, the vehicle needs to be at the same level height that it normally is when you're driving. I know it doesn't look that way, but remember, your tire takes up suspension when you put it on. So I measured on this rocker a distance of 8 inches to the wood, and then I jacked it up, took the tire off, let it back down until I hit that 8-inch mark again. So now what we have to do is that check plug that is buried back in there. There we go. We need to take that off, but before we do, the engine needs to be running and the transmission needs to be at operating temperatures, which is between about 185 and like 210 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to take this off so I can actually open this door. Learned that trick a long time ago, as long as you don't drop your keys. And we crank the car. Now I just came back from a fairly long test drive, so as you can see the engine is still at operating temp. There's no transmission gauge here. If you have a scan tool, you can plug that in down here and you can get the exact number, but basically if you've come back from a test drive and things are still pretty warm and you haven't dithered around a lot, the transmission's going to be at right around the temperature it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is what happens when you pop out that plug. What's going to happen is if there's too much fluid in the transmission, you're going to see that dribble out. If you don't see any fluid dribble out, that means the fluid level in the transmission is too low. And you need to pull the cap off the top and add more in. I've already broken it loose. It turns out you need one of these tools right here. One of these giant long Allens. This is a 10 millimeter. Or really, it's called a size 10. It's not 10 millimeter per se, but it's called a size 10. See? And you need one of these to break it loose. And I'm going to go ahead and start loosening it up, and we're going to see what we get. Okay, so it's hard to see, but you see I've got a tiny little drip right there. I've pretty much got it right. Sheer luck, I assure you. But as you can see, engine running, this check port is showing that I really don't have extra fluid in the transmission. So I'm going to go ahead and put this check bolt back in and then button all this back up. But I wanted to show you the back side of this check bolt that my assistant here is holding for me. So you can see it has an O-ring and there's a faint reddish tinge on it, so it's got fresh transmission fluid on it. This is definitely our check plug. So this is a mission success. I am very, very pleased. Let me go ahead and get this all buttoned back up. Alright guys, that is another mission success. We did a drain and fill on the transmission. We got the fluid level correct. And life is pretty good. As a reminder, with this 6F35 transmission, you should be draining and filling it every 30,000 miles if you want it to last. It has an internal transmission filter that you cannot service without splitting the transmission in half. So, once that filter clogs, that's it. Transmission done, unless you get it rebuilt. That's going to be it for me. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell all your friends. That can help contribute to what I'm trying to do here. And maybe I can even get a better camera. So until next time, guys, later.